Do I have sustained revenue? Do I have steady projected revenue?
Ooh.
And is my business in the black? If the answer to any of those is no, guess what?
Don't take a
You're
paycheck.
not paying yourself. It's ramen on the menu again, boys.
Welcome, everybody, to the Work Harder, Not Smarter podcast. Here's the deal. Owning a small business can suck, but by listening to us and playing your cards right, it might just suck a little less.
Thinking.
All right. I'm not putting that in. That is not our intro. That was the
Not
worst.
okay.
All right, so what are we going to talk
I'm
about?
already
Who's going to
uncomfortable.
intro this? Let's freaking get this party started.
Colton, it was your thing.
My idea?
Yep.
What was it?
Oh my gosh.
Money.
No.
No?
Well,
What?
I
Yeah,
guess.
yes, it is.
Okay.
What do I do with my money now? Listen,
There you
I'm a
go.
young guy, okay?
Yeah.
A young, strapping lad
Who's losing his hair?
who's the... Damn, you did not have to start swinging straight out of the gate like that. Holy freak. Want me to look like Steve?
What's wrong with Steve?
I'm in between.
Yeah.
So, you should be so lucky.
He's all like, when we came up to the studio this morning, I'm like, dude, why the freak are you late? He's like, couldn't keep my wife off me. He's like, just kidding, she hates my guts.
Marital bliss. Colton, when you're married as long as I've been, you will find that you don't so much like each other.
Oh my gosh.
It just becomes a necessary evil. It's like, well, we have kids. We could divorce, but that's messy.
This
you
is
know
the
what I mean?
saddest.
So-
Let's hope his wife isn't a viewer, because
Oh, she'll listen to this straight up.
She'll be like,
you've dug your own grave. I hold your marriage in my hand right now, because I'm the one who edits this. Should
I'll
I
call
leave it
her
in?
right now and tell her everything you're saying. She'll be like, shut up, idiot. None of that. She's a unwieldy
Anyway,
woman.
hey, listen, this is a serious topic. A lot of people need some wisdom on, including me. So, the topic for this week's episode is what to do with your money now. A lot of internet influencers and all that crap are like, you got to make your money work for you, right? You got to do this and that. What do I do with all the
Are
money
you
I have
talking
now?
about person? You're talking
Yeah, we're
about
not going to be
personal
talking about
finances.
personal finances. Joker. Did
No,
you
that's
not
fine.
Get my show notes?
That's fine. I'm not talking about personal finances.
That is literally what you just
I'm
asked.
talking about
Colton,
what should people do
stop
with
it.
their money?
Good.
So you remember yesterday when
Yes.
I was like, maybe I'm stupid, but I don't know which
What?
aspect we're talking about, and here's why. Because I was pretty sure, but then Colton was like, yeah, I'm broke. And I'm like, well, Colton, you're not. What? You're not the subject matter.
Listen, if we're not talking about me, I don't want to talk about it.
That's the reason why he wanted to start this, is so he could personally
So I could
progress
get
in life.
so I could get some few pointers here, Jeremy. Please help. No, okay. So yeah,
Spurs.
small business owners don't have a lot of money at the start,
No,
right?
they don't.
if any. Okay.
Well, yeah, most of the time, not much, if any. So what you need to do, we're going to talk about the small businessman or woman who is starting to get to a point where the profits are coming in, and they need to know what to do with that profit.
Gotcha.
In episode, what was it, 3 or 4, we talked about how normal small business owners just start taking, and they don't have any money
Correct.
to pay their taxes or expand, get new equipment, all that kind of crap, right? So we're talking about the person that has the money, has the mindset that they want to grow, they just don't know what to do with it or how to do it. Good?
So how to?
Do I need to explain it to you again?
No.
Steve,
I was just
are
putting
you
it.
on the same track?
I got it, Jeremy.
Do you got it? Let's hear
I have-
Steve
well,
explain.
Look at my
it.
notes, Colton. Here are some questions to ask yourself before taking a paycheck. Do I have sustained revenue? Do I have steady projected revenue? And is my business in the black? If the answer to any of those is no, guess what?
Don't take a
You're
paycheck.
not paying yourself. It's ramen on the menu again, boys. And then if you answer yes to those questions, then one method for determining how much to pay yourself is calculate your personal expenses and then base your pay on that.
Yes.
Rather than be like, well, what's the most I can take? Right?
Correct.
So instead you say, okay, well, what do I need right now? and then what are my goals for the business, and how can I reinvest what I don't need? And that's where I would be curious to get your takes on that, because there's lots of different things you can spend your money on.
A ton,
right? You can spend
it's
on
unlimited
new better
options.
Equipment, more employees. If the growth is there, you can spend it on marketing. You could spend it on education and development. All these different. And so I think that's why it's important to probably annually, I would say at a minimum, map out like, okay, what are your goals and objectives for this year, and then you just target your spending based on that.
No, I agree. So what you need to start with is, like Steve said, you have to project out. You have to figure out where you're going to be, what you're going to do. Now, a lot of construction or small businesses have busy seasons and slow seasons, on times, off times,
Especially in the construction industry.
Especially in the construction industry. So you need to figure out what your times are that you're going to be busy, what times you're going to be slow. You have to figure out how much your overhead is and what your expenses are during the slow time, and consider that in the busy time to figure out your overall projections. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble, right? Like, you can't consistently be at a big profit margin if you're seasonal. It's impossible. So how much profit are you making per year with everything looked at, right? What's the average profit per year? Then you need to figure out, like Steve said, what you need to make yourself. What's the base income you have to pay yourself?
Gotcha.
You have to figure out what profit after that, and then find a percentage that you can work with every year consistently to put away to put towards something, right?
So something to make you more money, right? So are you saying you have to?
Not necessarily, because it depends on the stage of where you're at in your new business. So eventually, yes, you want to get into quote unquote investments that will give you money back. But we're talking about a business that has just become profitable, that has extra money now, and what to do with it. So you don't want to go, you don't want to become profitable immediately and then be like, well, I'm going to take all my profits and throw it out of the business.
Gotcha.
Right?
Try to
you want to work within your business to grow it so you're at a very good point in 5 years or whatever to be able to just throw money out and not have to worry about the business.
Refine your systems and processes.
Yeah.
Like,
so you have to figure out what your quote-unquote investment is, right? There's, like Steve said, there's a million different things that you can put toward an investment, right? There's equipment. There's a new building. You could buy property, build your own building if you're renting. It'll save you a ton of money. You're building equity. You're doing things like that. You could work on your equipment, tools, buy new vehicles, put money toward new employees, advertising for employees, stuff like that. That's what I would suggest you do, is put it toward working in your own business before you start thinking about outside investments. So there's inside investments and outside investments. Work on the inside until you're happy with the amount of profit you're making, you're taking home a great amount of money, and you still have a ridiculous amount of extra that you can now start looking at outside investments.
it's a step-by-step process. You can't move on to the next step if the step you're currently on is falling
not complete.
apart.
Here's the issue, though, is a lot of the stuff you're talking about, obviously, it's fundamentally is sound, right? Like, I don't disagree with any of that. The problem is, if you're just starting out, you don't know what your average annual intake is, right? Yep. And you don't know what, I suspect, you may have an idea. I mean, presumably, if you're starting a business,
you should know.
Especially in construction, you've been doing it for a while, so you can kind of project based on that. But you may not know what your slow season is, right? Or how slow is it going to really be?
Yeah.
Well, how long until people become profitable? Isn't it like 5 years on average?
3 to 5. I mean,
so we'll say 3. So on average, your small businesses become profitable at year 3. Okay, so this is what we're talking about.
Depending on how much you want to grow your business and invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. So again, I didn't do it the typical way, right? I kept investing.
Yours was year 12.
Well, and look at where we're at because of that.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I mean, I'm
because
it
what did you do with your money?
Well, I kept investing it back into the company over and over, millions of dollars back into the company over that 12 years, millions. That I could have taken home, but I didn't, because I wanted to invest in myself, because I felt like it was the right thing to do, because I wanted a big business, and it worked out for me. Yes, you can do it within 3 years, and you can start taking all the money out of it, and you can just ride it out and hope it grows naturally. I didn't take that chance.
These are some terms generally used to measure the level of profitability, and I think they're pretty good. So you have ramen profitable.
Yep.
which I'm sure we can imagine what that is. You have just enough to support you and cover your living expenses. Corporate profitable, which is you're paying on everything and you're paying yourself. You have a good profit and you have money left in the bank. And then break even, which is where what you're bringing in matches with what's going out. Ramen.
So
profitable.
let's talk about
making that ramen.
when you're ramen profitable. Okay, you're ramen profitable. You have like no money.
Yeah.
That's what I think is worth kind of exploring a
Where?
little bit because,
What do you do?
well, not no money, right? Because ramen profitable, you're taking some,
Yes.
right?
16 cents to the dollar.
Dude, 16% to the
that's
dollar
a
would be a huge profit. That's 16%. Colton, do the math.
Yeah, that's a lot. Ramen. I've lived there, right?
So
I did
that's
that.
what I'm saying is like, so
That's
let's
hard.
say, so I've started a business, right?
Yes.
And I've been doing it for a year. And at the end of the first, 2 years, I'm paying, let's say you're paying your own living expenses, right? Because I think that's probably a priority for most people is like, I need to not die while, because the business is going to suffer if I die.
No, that sounds important.
So you say, okay, I'm paying my basic living. I'm not talking lavish. I'm
Yeah.
talking about like you're just paying for a decent, you're
paying the bills.
You're covering
Yeah.
yourself, right? And then you have, 20 grand that you've made
Jeez,
for the year.
That's a lot.
You know what I mean? Well, but you'll burn through 20 grand pretty
Pretty quick.
fast, right? So I'm not talking about like you've paid everything, you've done all the goal stuff you want to do, and then you have 20 grand left
Oh,
over.
you mean
I'm talking like,
total?
yeah, I'm talking
Oh,
like,
okay. Yeah, that's very realistic.
all the bills are paid.
Yes.
I paid myself a modest salary to
Yep.
cover my expenses, and I've got 20
You have 20
grand.
grand to-
What do I want to
what do you
do
do
with
with
it?
it?
Right? Because and that's where I'm kind of thinking like there's probably a lot of agony going into those decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you're making, if your business is pulling in $500,000
Yeah.
after you're paying yourself a nice living and all that, then you have a lot more latitude to be like, oh
Absolutely.
yeah, I want to do this and we're going to do that. But when it's a small amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like for you, I remember you talked in, I don't know if it was your first or second episode about that van. Like you had a trash van, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay,
Chimo
cool.
vans.
I got my 20 grand. I'm going to get rid of that turd van,
Yes.
right? And I'm going to buy another van.
Yeah.
But like that's the amount of money I'm talking about where it's like you want to do all of these things,
Yeah,
right? Like
but
I'd
you
like to
can't.
develop my employees and give
Mm-hmm.
them some incentive and some education or whatever. And I'd also like to do this big equipment refresh. And I'd also like to put some of this money away for just in case. How do you level with that with a small amount of money? You know what I mean? And be
Okay.
effective with it.
Do you put it into like all three that he was talking about, or do you just say, hey,
So I wouldn't do it to all three. The first thing I would do is honestly do something for the employees because morale and stuff like that is what I would do. I wouldn't. I'm not saying give them all huge raises or anything. No,
who's
not
that?
you, Colton.
Who is that? Who's that employee?
I would definitely start there because if they feel appreciated, they're going to work harder. They're going to stay longer. So I would put a little bit towards that. Then I guess it depends on what your equipment looks like. If you started with newer equipment, then go to vehicles. If you have new vehicles and your equipment sucked, go to equipment. I would definitely make sure that you are figuring out how to spend enough to make yourself more efficient and make things easier on your employees. Because ultimately, that's going to make you way more money over time and help your employees feel appreciated. So basically, do it in a way that it's going to make you more money by being easier or more efficient in equipment or vehicles or however that works.
Gotcha.
But like Steve said, you have to put and sock away some of that. You can't spend it all because eventually you're going to forget about a bill or something coming up, or you're going to get audited by the workers' comp or something, and you're going to get a fine or a fee. You cannot spend it all. You can't. You have to sock away some. What that percentage looks like is up to each individual person. I would suggest a minimum of 10% of everything that you make profit up to a certain amount. So for instance, our business, we sock away, and there's always a minimum of $100,000 in our account, a minimum. We do not spend anything if it gets to 100 grand. We don't. Okay? Because that 100 grand will last us through a workers' comp audit or a tax audit or something stupid where you have to get a fine, whether you're doing stuff right or not. They find something, and there's
Yeah.
always something that you have to pay.
Well, especially as you're learning things as a new business owner, right? In one of the episodes, you were talking about how you missed a bill and you had to pay a super
Dude,
big
a
fine.
lot of money.
And a lot of business owners, like, if that happens to them, that could destroy
Oh,
the
it could
business.
devastate the business for sure.
So having that rainy day fund
Yes.
is
It's hugely important,
Hugely
especially in the beginning. Like, I wish I would have done that. Like I said, I just kept spending money within the business, and it worked out. But it was that fine when we got that, I was like, oh, freak, right? Like, we didn't have any money. Our credit cards were already burned through because the economy crashed. Like, it was bad. If we would have had that rainy day fund or a war chest account, it would have been easier.
I think screw the rainy day fund, buy Mountain Dew and cocaine, and live your life. We're all gonna die soon
Live your
anyway.
best life.
Dude,
Okay, so let's get in. It's story time. It's story time.
cocaine and Mountain Dew made a story come to your mind?
Okay, so we just barely got back, Colton and I and our company from Costa Rica. Okay,
Steve. Where were you, Steve?
still working his dumb job. He does not look happy.
Freedom isn't free.
Cost a hefty freaking fee.
So we took our company out to Costa Rica for 1 week. When we went out to the beach the first time, I know of at least 2 employees, probably multiple more. A guy walked up to him, opened up his fanny pack, and was like, "Cocaine? Marijuana? What do you want? I got it." If you go to Costa Rica, just be very careful of which beach you're at.
So keep going what you were saying, Jeremy. You said, okay, you have 20 grand
Yeah,
at
20
the end of the
grand.
year.
I'd put-
10%, that's $2,000 into a rainy day fund
at
immediately.
least, right?
Okay.
I mean, if it takes you a year to get 20 grand, you should probably sock away 4,000 to 5,000 of it. Just at least for your first year. The second year, you have a little more kind of leeway and stuff like that. But I would put a fair amount away in a rainy day fund, because ultimately that's going to save your butt, and it gives you peace of mind, less stress. You know, there's a little bit there for just in case. So, say you have 20 grand, 5 grand to your savings,
Okay.
right?
You
got
now have
15K.
15,000.
I would spend 1,000-ish on either a Christmas party at the end of the year, a summer barbecue, maybe multiple things throughout the year, and then Christmas bonuses. They don't have to be huge your first year,
Just a little something.
but
something.
something to show your employees that you appreciate them.
Okay, you're at 14.
At 14K. 14K goes a long way in a brand new business with, say, 2 crews. You have 4 employees and yourself. You're doing basically running the business, doing all the bids, getting everything lined up, scheduling, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You have 4 employees, 2 crews. That's roughly $7,000 per crew that you can either do new equipment, and if it's new equipment, you're into it $3,000, maybe $4,000, which leaves about $3,000.
I was not under the impression that as a small business owner, or I guess I didn't realize you shouldn't go on to the next step without securing the step that you're on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, you have to. I mean, you can't jump ahead, and you're going to overextend yourself. You're going to not be able to afford the things. You have to be very, very, I don't even know how to say it.
Because I get stuck in a spot where I'm like, okay, what's the next step? What else can I do? Without really internalizing and saying, okay, where I'm at now, how can I make that the best of the best?
I'm going to give you the perfect example. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. I know of a guy that is ambitious. He is in management. He wants to continue growing with the company he's at, but he looks 2 or 3 steps ahead of, well, I want to do this or I want to do that, and then he researches that. He focuses on the next 2 or 3 steps, and he forgets what he's doing. He doesn't perfect the job and position he's in, and he doesn't produce as well as he could. Since then, he's done better focusing on his job now. But if you focus too far ahead, you're not going to make it. You're not going to do anything good. You're going to confuse yourself. You're not going to focus on the now. You're not going to be able to figure out all your problems and fix them and get better and good at what you're doing now. So me and my business partner, when we started doing business together, he was fairly new to business, and he said, well, let's make a projection for out to 5 years. And I said, dude, you can't. It's 1 year is perfect. I think you just went over this. 1 year is a perfect projection. 2 to 3 years is doable, but it's still kind of hazy. Every year, everything changes.
Yeah.
Look at COVID. It took a dump on everything.
Oh, yeah.
If you tried to project out 3 to 5 years,
You'd be
good
screwed.
freaking luck. You're what a waste of time.
Yeah, well, I think you see that with like mission and vision statements, right?
Yeah.
To get all corporate.
Yep.
Because the vision is the 5 years.
Correct.
It's not a projection. Like you're not trying to. I mean, I'm sure there are probably businesses out there that are sophisticated enough.
They have enough data. They could probably do it.
They can do those things. But for the average, the vision is in 5 years, we'd like to be this.
Correct.
And it's more conceptual. It's not
Yes.
like, here's what our expenses are going to be in 5 years and that kind of thing. And then, and then you have your shorter term stuff that drives toward that.
Correct.
Right. And so, I think it's important. Something that I notice, and I feel like we're kind of getting off track with regards to how do I spend my money in a small business, but I think that, you said something interesting about looking too far ahead. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's hard to teach that, where I need you to consider second and third order effects of what you're doing.
Correct.
But you can't take your eye off the ball.
Yes.
You still got to do the thing.
Yes.
Understand what that's going to mean later on and what that's going to affect, the ripple effect,
That's
right?
exactly
That's going to come off of it.
Yep.
And I think that, you could apply it with your money as well. Like you said, if you say, okay, cool, I'm not going to sock anything away because we have this enticing need that I want to satisfy, and then it blows up in your face. And so I think you have to find the balance. And this is kind of a difficult thing to talk about too, because there's no rules.
No,
you know
there's
what I mean?
no right or wrong answer.
What's your business?
Correct.
And how many employees do you have?
Yep.
And are you a one-man
so
show? And are you
much,
always
yeah.
going to be a one-man show? Or
There's so much that
do
goes
you
into
need
it.
people to do your job?
Correct.
Because like if you're a tech startup, a lot of them are minimal employees, right? But then if you look at like what you guys do, I can't go build a deck by myself.
Well, I have a great example of what you were just talking about. So when we build our decks, how long have we been using the pile system?
2 years.
About 2 years. So 2 years ago, we hand dug every single footing and poured our own concrete, mixed it, poured it, set it, all that kind of stuff.
It was trash.
Well, it wasn't trash. It was the right way to do it at the time.
It was trash.
I mean, the
Just because
outcome
you were doing
when
it.
you're
outcome
when it's,
was good.
When
but
it's
the
dead
process
July,
was
The
trash.
process, well, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of energy, which sucks when you're the crew doing it, because that basically wastes your whole day. You're
man.
done at the end of the day. So we started looking into pile systems. Okay. Now, it is a lot more efficient. It was way more expensive, but we also had to look at not only the expense and it being more efficient, but how much time did it save our guys? How much energy did it save our guys? And how much more production were they willing to do because they weren't burnt out from digging the holes, mixing the concrete, and pouring? So we came to the conclusion, yes, it is more expensive to put a pile in per hole, but the time saved, the efficiency of it, and the energy saved, and the mental happiness of our employees went through the roof. Overall, yes, it's more expensive, but we make more on the back end because it shortens the time of the build. Our employees are happier and they have more energy to continue doing other stuff and not worrying about digging those holes, mixing the concrete. So there are efficiencies that you need to look at when thinking about what to spend your money on, along with the tools and stuff like that. But efficiencies and ways of doing things. I mean, another example is the straight cut with the board. We were chalking lines and hand cutting the sides of our decking, and a new guy. It's really hard for new people to cut straight lines with skill saws and stuff. It's almost impossible. So we spent money in efficiency tools. There's a straight line skill saw that literally it's smooth as butter. It's easy to use and it makes the cuts look perfect. So we invested in those. Again, it was better time, better efficiencies, made the jobs go crazy quicker. Yes, it was a very expensive tool, but overall, we're making more money because it's faster and easier.
This episode's tough
this one is tough.
because it's kind of, I feel like it branches out a lot.
It does. Well, there's so many different things that you can do with your money, and there
Right.
isn't one set
And you want to
answer.
qualify some of those
Exactly.
things. We're like, well, here's why that matters, and you can do employee recognition, and here's Costa Rica with cocaine, and we can do equipment. Here's you cutting a straight line. So it's, it's gonna be hard to
what out of all of that, what
I mean, I think
makes the most money?
I think the big.
What's going to make
takeaways-
you the most money? If you were stuck being like, okay, I can either invest this in vehicles, because a lot of business owners get to that point where they're at what is it called? An ultimatum, where they can either put the amount of money they have in this or in this. And so
Well,
how do you
everything's-
determine what's going to make you
Yeah.
the most money?
Everything's a compromise, right? It always is. And that's something that, like, as I get older, I get saltier about, because you can't, like, it's always freaking something. You can either do this or this. You can't do both.
Jeremy, can you remember a specific time as you were starting your business in the very early stages where you had a limited amount of money and you didn't know whether to put it in, like, bag A or bag B? Because, like, you could, for example, you could either put all your money in this and this might survive, or you could put it in this and this might survive, but you can't put them in both because neither of them will
Give me
work.
an example. I'm not sure what you're...
So I'm saying...
So you mean like equipment or vehicles? Or
yeah,
are you thinking...
yeah. How did you determine, hey, I have this much amount of money, what am I going to do with it so I can make the most amount of money in the future? Can you think of any, like, specific experiences
Well,
where
the
that
first
happened?
one was my tools. We've talked about it a couple times where I bought the cheapest crap, like seriously, like 30-year-old table saws and crap. The first thing that I knew, and again, I didn't do it the traditional way. Other people probably buy brand new tools when they start a business. I don't know. But for me, tools were 100% the first thing, because those things were shooting sparks after about a month and through the motor. Like, it was not safe, dude. It was really sketchy.
Is Jeremy using that grinder again? No, that's the table saw.
Yeah, basically, it was so it was a no-brainer for me, because I had to do those specific things because my tools were breaking. So I don't think I was ever like, well, do I do this or this? It was always, I need and
There's
have
something.
to do
Yeah,
this.
it probably takes a while, I would expect, to get to the point where you're like, okay, all the necessities are covered.
Correct.
So, and now I've still got something left over.
What do I
and
do with
now you start kind of exploring around, because
Exactly.
we're even going through that in the squadron that I'm in right now. There are things that I feel like we absolutely need this to become functional, and the squadron's been around for forever, but there's so many changes that happen and personalities come through, right? And everybody's got a different priority.
Yep.
And so, for us, it's like, okay, I need a transparent task management system. I need everybody who comes to work to know, here's what I need to do today, and here's how I can communicate that it's done, and all the details associated with that, right? And so I think that it's probably be a long time before you're like really sitting in the luxury of being like,
I have everything
cool, I have
covered.
a surplus
Yeah.
here.
Correct.
What do I want to start doing maybe that I've not done before?
Yeah.
Or branch out into something that previously we couldn't branch out into. And so I think that comes with kind of creating manageable growth for your business. Because you can't just go nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and that's
oh, it's
basically
almost
where
like
we
surplus.
started, right?
Yeah,
We're to a point of where we started is you have to be to a fairly good size, and I wouldn't even say size, just timeline in your business from the start to be able to get to that point. Like, in the beginning, you do everything you have to do to get the things you need to survive and continue working.
It's almost
There's
being
no luxury
surrounded.
of, I wish or I'm going to do this or this. It's not that. It's I have to do this.
Yeah. It's almost being surrounded by a bunch of fires and only having one bucket.
Yeah.
Being like, okay, what
Which
fire
one
do
do I
I
put
have
out?
to? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
What would you do in your infinite wisdom, right? As a tenured employee,
Okay.
6 months experience
Okay.
with your $20,000 profit.
A lot more than that, but
You graduated high school 8 months ago, so I just figured.
dude, I'm a senior college dropout. You watch your mouth when you.
We're going to do an episode about that. And I want you to leave this in this podcast. We are going to circle back around to education.
Steve is mad on how many good points Jeremy and I made about college.
That's
a
right.
couple
And I
episodes
want to
ago.
bring that back up so you can make those great points again.
Listen, what would I do with $20,000? Okay. For
Yeah,
seasonal
I'm going to give
lighting.
you a simple solution. If you can't think of it, you don't have to spend it. Put it in an account. Put it in your war chest account. You don't have to spend every penny you have.
Okay, well, that's a good.
If there's literally
Expand on that.
nothing you
Expand
could
on that.
think about spending it on, if all of your efficiencies in your mind are covered, if all of your equipment is up to date and,
You don't have
and
any
good,
You don't have any glaring issues.
There
right?
is-
You don't have like a beater
But what
van.
what
You
good
don't
is
have to
what
spend
good
that money.
what good is that money then doing in your account if it's not
because eventually there will be something that comes up that is a great opportunity or something that you figure out that could potentially make things better.
So you're saying just straight up save until
if there's nothing to do. So this is the scary part of new business and young business owners is they have this money and they're like, I can't think of anything. I'm gonna go buy a 4-wheeler. Tax season. Oh, I have to pay more taxes. I made more this year than I thought. What do? Well, I have a 4-wheeler I can sell for $3,000 less than I just bought it for. And you always have to look at your next year's projections. Are you planning on expanding? Are you planning on growing? What's next year looking like? Are you going to have to put more into inventory? So there's nothing wrong with if you have a bulk amount, just save it. Because ultimately you will eventually need that for growth or opportunity or something. You don't have to spend it because you have it. And I think a lot of people get comfortable with a certain amount of money in their account, and anything above and beyond that, they feel like they have to spend it. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's
20,
true.
I think an average American, I could have sworn it was like $20,000, where people will actually just like stay
Keep it
there.
that. And if they get more, they spend it on crap they don't need because
exactly.
they don't feel comfortable with more money.
Yeah.
It's an odd concept, and it's an interesting, weird thing with people, like their mindset and the way they think, but it's true.
Yeah.
People think, oh, I have too much money, I need to go buy something.
Yeah.
It's
people
freaking
have
bizarre,
that
bro.
set amount in their mind, and they hardly ever deviate
Correct.
from it.
So don't get in that mindset, especially with business. Save. If you don't need to spend it, don't freaking spend it, because eventually it will be used.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this podcast. This episode, we put a lot of work into it. Be sure, please, well, some work. Steve printed off 3 things, and that's all he did.
It technically wasn't even for this episode, if I'm being fair.
But we love doing it. Support us.
If you're having a struggle in your business or in your life right now that you want to hear us talk about and get our 2 cents, let us know.
Also, be sure to check out our support link, buymeacoffee.com/workharder. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, check us out. buymeacoffee.com.